Rocky, I think, is actually the only boxing movie that I've seen
Oh,
because
wow.
not to spoil my recommendations, but I was trying to think like, oh, is there any boxing movies that I've seen that I like that I could do for recommendations? And nothing came to mind. Like I haven't even seen something sci-fi like Real Steel with Hugh Jackman. Like, I mean, I own Raging Bull. I was gonna watch The Survivor, which is a true story about a World War II Jew, I think, who the Nazis. I don't want to, since it's true story, I don't want to start randomly going, but it was something like that where he was fighting kind of for the Nazis' enjoyments. But I never got a chance to watch that. So really, I think Rocky's the only boxing movie, which is kind of,
Holy cow.
yeah, it's kind of crazy to think.
Have you seen the other movies in the Rocky franchise?
No, I have never. I got like a box set of all the Rockies, and I own Creed, but I mean I've seen
And
a couple clips of Creed on YouTube, but no, I haven't watched any of them yet.
you've
They're on
never
my
seen
list.
Rocky 4?
No,
You've never
I
seen
did. No,
Dhal, is
no.
it 3 where Rocky and Apollo have the training montage where they're running on the beach and then hugging the water in slow motion?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think that's the one where he fights Clubber Lang, Mr.
Yeah,
T.
Mr. T. Yeah. That's like the greatest moment in a series that has a ton of great training montage moments. That is the single best moment in any Rocky training montage. Maybe in any movie training montage, period.
You
Those
know,
two running on the beach and then hugging in slow motion is just like maybe next to the volleyball scene in Top Gun, that is peak, cinematic homoeroticism.
I was just about to bring up
Top-notch stuff.
Top Gun, saying what was up with the '80s and grown men flexing their guns on the beach.
The beach is sexy, man. The beach is sexy.
Beach is still sexy. I mean, Top Gun Maverick. Look at that beach football scene. I mean, come on.
Can you guys name any good tennis movies? I know, Duke, you said that you haven't seen a lot of or any boxing movies
Oh yeah,
outside of
boxing.
Rocky.
Hey, I've watched sports movies. Hello, Airbud.
Well, no, tennis specifically. Unless there's a
Battle of the
tennis there, but-
Sexes with Steve Carell and Emma Stone.
I don't
was
think
that
there
good?
are.
That's a biopic of the Battle of the Sexes, which was, I don't know, I forget the actual real life people, but it was the world's greatest male, and then the world said something like, "Oh, I could easily beat the world's greatest female." So then they fought, they battled, and then the female, I think it was close, but I think she kicked his ass. But then when they did Battle of the Sexes again afterwards, which isn't in the movie, but then yeah, I think the man won. I don't know, but anyway, the first one. So it's the Battle of the Sexes between I think it was the best male and the best female. This was set in the 70s. It was quite good. I mean, I like Steve Carell and Emma Stone, so.
Yeah,
But,
I don't think it was the best
have you seen it?
tennis player. Well, I mean, it's based on a true story. I haven't seen it though. No.
I'll just Google. This is the joy of having.
The female was Billie Jean King. I can't remember who the
Yes.
guy was, but I don't think the guy was either. Was he older? I don't think he was not like the best.
It was Bobby Riggs. He was
doesn't even ring a bell.
He was the world #1 professional in 1946 and 47. The movie is set in 1970. So yeah, it was past his prime. I think, again, it came out in 2017, so I haven't watched it since then. At age 29, Billie Jean King won the Battle of the Sexes tennis match against a 55-year-old Bobby Riggs.
Is that the only tennis movie that we can?
Yeah,
name?
I didn't watch. Actually, I haven't watched King Richard, but I mean, how many tennis movies are there? Like, I can't think of any.
It might just be those. It might be those two.
There's another one. There's another one with I can't think of the actor's name, and I actually might be wrong. You know how sometimes you picture a certain actor, but it's actually not the right person. There's another one that I think is either set at Wimbledon or around Wimbledon, but I can't remember what it's called.
Borg versus McEnroe?
No.
Wimbledon?
No,
There's a Wimbledon movie.
Wait, is that a movie, Wimbledon?
Wimbledon with Kirsten Dunst and Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany, yeah, that's it. That's the one. I've never seen it though.
I guess there's a bunch of rom-coms. It looks like. I was thinking more drama,
Like a classic
biopic
sports
kind of.
movie.
Yeah, this looks like Jesus. I gotta type in if I type in just Wimbledon.
Yeah, I think it's a rom-com.
Mrs. Doll Baby likes that, huh? She got you to watch it.
No,
Oh, John, Sam Neill. Oh, Dahlgren. I might have to watch this now. This is a good cast.
The only reason I know about it is because it has to do with tennis.
James McAvoy. I don't know how you say his last name.
McAvoy.
McAvoy. Yeah, I've said it. McAvoy. Kirsten Dunst, Paul Bettany, Sam Neill, Nicolas Coster-Waldau, John Favreau.
That's a lot
tennis
of
players playing themselves. I mean, that's a pretty good cast for 2004. That's a lot of
definitely a lot of names. Those are names of actors.
Those are actors that we know of.
Yep, for sure. But Duke, we're not going to let you get off this easy with just throwing out that this is the only boxing movie that you've seen.
Let me.
No.
Let me give you this, Raph. Do I need to
there's-
see another boxing movie? Is this not the greatest boxing movie?
Dhal, help me out.
Yeah, I think it is. But there are other good ones.
I mean, I'm going to watch the rest of the Rockies. I will watch Raging Bull.
Cinderella Man.
Cinderella. I don't know. Well, who's in that?
Cinderella Man with Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
No, Russell Crowe. He's fine.
I haven't seen $1 Million Baby, but that's on my list.
Is that a tennis movie? No, that's a boxing movie. Yeah,
it's boxing movie. We're
talking
back
about
to
Rocky
boxing.
now. Yeah.
Yeah,
we're back
Clint Eastwood. I don't know. I might watch
never
that.
seen $1 Million Baby.
Who is that?
Same.
Is that Renee Zellweger?
Hilary Swank.
Hilary Swank. They kind of look the same.
I don't think so.
Both blonde. Both were famous around the same time.
Isn't Hilary Swank a brunette? Famously?
No,
yeah.
She's blonde. Oh, whatever. I've only seen her.
No, she's brunette. You're crazy.
You know, they both have heights. They're both between, 4'0" and 6'2", probably.
They're both female. I mean, they're practically the same.
They have hair, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
eyebrows and all that good
Okay,
stuff.
you guys, that's enough. Picking on Duke.
It's because you haven't seen it. I'm pretty surprised that you haven't seen any of the other Rocky movies.
You know what? It's funny because I was thinking that exact same thing.
You know what it is?
I started my rewatch, but then I watched Rocky and I'm like, this is good. But it's like once you watch it, you're like, I don't need to watch Rocky 2 right away. And I feel like that's always what happens. I watch it, I'm just like, that was good, but I don't need to watch the sequel right now. And then I just don't, and then I watch Rocky.
But I
around.
I think I realize what it is.
Okay.
Dhal, the reason why Duke hasn't seen all of the Rocky movies, those are American classics, and Duke is famously not American.
Oh yeah.
As a Canadian, he doesn't care about Rocky defeating the Soviet Union to win the U.S. the Cold War. He should, because we did that for them too, but
right.
He doesn't care the same way that we care.
Rocky basically saved Canada from nuclear fallout as well, just by beating the Russian.
Wow.
Yeah, you're welcome, Duke.
Yeah.
Maybe
we did that for you.
Maybe Creed Ford will have Michael B. Jordan face off against a moose, and then that'll get me to binge watch the entire series.
He'll fight against famous Canadian Ryan Gosling or famous Canadian Justin Bieber.
Oh boy.
Maybe Drake. That would be fun. Who wouldn't want to watch Michael B. Jordan beat the crap out of Drake in a boxing ring?
I can think of a few other Canadians I'd rather get seeing the shit kicked out of them first. But
well, we don't have to go through all of them.
No.
Not right now, at least. Gentlemen, we're here today. We got another great episode of the Canon for you. It's officially summertime, right? Memorial Day just passed. Well, it's not for Duke because, again, he's Canadian and doesn't celebrate the great American holiday that is Memorial Day. But
Nope.
for Dhal, for you and me, and for all other Americans, it's unofficially summertime for us.
Yeah, well, it feels like it here already. I mean, it's rather steamy, and I'd rather that we just rewind back to spring or even winter.
No.
You're in Texas, right?
Yep, good old Tejas.
Yeah. So it's definitely hot down there. Well, I hope you're staying cool. No better way to stay cool than by staying inside and watching amazing movies like Rocky. Eh? Eh?
Mm-hmm.
Eh?
Or listening to the Canon podcast.
Or staying cool, cranking up the AC, and throwing on a good old episode of the Canon.
Or watching Rocky while enjoying some Rocky Road ice cream.
Nice.
No?
Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yep. Or watching all of the Rocky movies and the Creeds too. Why not?
No, just Rocky one over and over.
Oh,
That's all I do.
damn it, Duke.
No, hey, Raph. This actually reminded me of something. Rocky, and I think Dahl will agree with me, Rocky and First Blood are kind of like interesting franchises, I believe, because Rocky ends where like you don't need a sequel. Like if Rocky never had a sequel, no one would watch Rocky and go, "Oh, I wish there was a sequel." You know, there might be some people who would like to see the character, but it's not like Rocky leaves, there's no sequel set up, there's no hints. Like even Creed and Rocky at the end, Apollo's going, ain't gonna be no rematch between them. Like it's basically saying like, do not expect a sequel because these guys will not be fighting again, even though I think they do in the later one. But it's interesting, watching Stallone's first couple leading role movies and then kind of seeing how like the franchise that kind of evolved around them and how they kind of, I mean, Ramble's completely different than First Blood, but I think, Rocky's kind of maintained like they're kind of all similar tone until I think Creed 3, Stallone doesn't necessarily think that's a good one, or it doesn't have the same tone. I remember him reading an interview.
What's up with the guy who hasn't seen any of the Rocky movies telling us about the tone of the Rocky movies?
Dahlgren, am I wrong?
No, I think that I think that the Rocky franchise has regained a little bit of its shine over the years. I mean, it lost some along the way because I mean, I think in the 80s and early 90s, or all through the 90s, it was probably seen as a cash grab. And I mean, let's be honest, there wouldn't have been a sequel or any sequels if it wasn't a smash hit. And the same can be said of First Blood. And both Rocky and First Blood are just superior movies to any in those franchises. And as an aside, I really wished that they would have just kind of put the cap on Rambo in the same way that they did with Rocky Balboa and gone back to a more serious tone for the character instead of the splatter, extreme violence, stupidity that they did with the sequels later on. It was just very disappointing. I think that there was a way more interesting thing you could have done with that, capping off that franchise than what they did. Rocky Balboa is a really good movie. I'm sorry, is it Balboa? I'm blanking right now.
It sounded the exact same to me both times you just said it. So
I'm not sure what the actual name of that one is. I haven't seen that one.
Oh, that one's Balboa. That one is Rocky Balboa.
That's just Balboa, or is it Rocky Balboa?
It's Rocky Balboa. Rambo 4 is just Rambo, and then it's Rambo Last Blood.
Got it. That's silly. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about Rambo more. I think there is a First Blood episode coming down in the canon at some point in the future. So we'll get to all that good stuff then. But in terms of Rocky, Dhal, I think you brought up a pretty interesting point and something that I think is not necessarily a hot take, but a take that some people might disagree with. And I am open to really either side of the conversation. But you mentioned that the first Rocky movie is probably the best out of the franchise. I was wondering if you could just walk us through how you were first introduced to the Rocky franchise to this movie, Rocky itself? Was this the first one that you saw? Did you watch a different one first and then revisit this? Just walk me through how you were sort of introduced to Rocky at first.
Yeah, that story is pretty much the same for most of those movies from that era. It was my parents. My parents were big movie fans and, went to the movies all the time. I know they went to see Rocky at the theater. I'm pretty sure that Rocky was the first one that I saw, probably on TV. And yeah, Rocky's pretty personal for me, I guess, because I have some very vivid memories from childhood that are centered around that. In fact, I remember very, very vividly when I was little getting my first pair of boxing gloves and my dad getting down on his knees and like teaching me how to box. I remember he gave me a bloody nose one time completely by accident. I mean, it felt terrible, it was one of those just parental mishaps. He definitely was not. I probably walked into a punch or something, but that sounds really.
You guys weren't sparring in the ring.
Yeah, but I was I was a kid on the living room floor, boxing with my dad, and despite that sounding like borderline child abuse, it's a great memory. I mean, some of my best memories of childhood are doing sports and stuff with my dad, and so Rocky was just another one of those kind of windows into the sports world and my relationship with my dad. And so yeah, that's how I got into the Rocky franchise, and I would say it's meant quite a bit to me over the years for that reason.
I love that. That's awesome. Duke, I know you haven't seen any of the other ones, but what was your first introduction to, I guess, just this movie, this first Rocky movie?
This was back when we were all on the predecessor of Screen Age Wasteland. We were going through AFI 100 greatest film, something like that. 100 years, 100 movies with AFI.
Mm-hmm.
And Rocky was on it. And similar to the Canon, which we do on Screen Age Wasteland now, we each would write up a movie. And so I picked Rocky, so I watched it for the podcast. Or not podcast, sorry. I watched Rocky for the old Canon, I'll call it. And yeah, I loved it. It was great. I mean, I repurposed that write-up for Screen Age Wasteland when we did the Canon, the written version of the Canon, or the written version of Rocky for the Canon. And going back and rereading it, I mean, 2019 Duke, such a better writer than 2023 Duke. I mean,
a lot of people are saying that.
Yeah. How much worse I've gotten with age. Yeah. But no, so that was it. It was, again, through this community. Otherwise, I don't know when I would have gone around to watching Rocky. I mean, doing Canon stuff for the Canon. I mean, The Graduate I've watched because of it. A couple other shows or movies. So yeah, no, that was entirely like that. And again, I mean, I just haven't gotten around to watching the sequels, but I'm gonna try.
You should try.
I want to get to Creed because unlike a lot of people, I actually like legacy sequels. I think it's cool revisiting a character after you, like, as opposed to say, like the Fast and Furious franchise, where we've seen these characters continuously for over 20 years now. I like kind of picking up with the character when you haven't seen them after, 10, 20 years. So I'm interested to kind of see the time jump. I think also Rocky Balboa is kind of a legacy sequel before that was a term. And then Creed and then Dolph Lundgren comes back for Creed 2. So it'll be cool to see these characters that pop up through the franchise kind of come back. So no, I'm gonna tell this right here on the podcast. Before the end of 2024, I'll have watched all the Rocky films. Got to give myself a little time, but I'll watch them.
We'll check back in with you at the end of 2024 to see. We're gonna hold you to that. It's documented.
Canon
it's here.
Season 4. It'll be like, we got Duke back on just to see if he's finished the Rocky films.
That's it. That's it. We're gonna have you back just for that.
It's been etched in the cloud.
Yeah, this is forever.
Yeah.
This isn't Disney Plus or HBO Max where we just wipe content from the face of the earth. Those words are forever, Duke, so we're gonna hold you to that. I think you should check out the other Rocky movies. I was first introduced to Rocky, I think just sort of like watching them on TV, when I was a kid. I think the first ones that I saw were Rocky 3 or 4. I remember, on TV on like TMC and all that good stuff and AMC. Remember when AMC used to actually play movies? That was cool.
Mm.
So for like 4th of July weekend, they would always do Rocky marathons. And I remember watching those two and thinking that Rocky was like the coolest character ever, just a total badass. The way that he, you know, boxed and went about his business and everything like that. And then it wasn't until I had seen all the other ones and had seen 4, 10 times. It wasn't until then that I finally decided to sit down and watch the original. And I think I watched the original when I was in high school, and having come from Rocky 4, Rocky 3, maybe even Rocky 2 a little bit, where there is a lot more boxing, I thought Rocky 1 was, like, a little boring the first time I watched it. It's like, "Where's all the boxing? This isn't a boxing movie, this is just people talking. This is a romance movie about Rocky and that lady from the pet store. What's the deal with this? When do they get to fighting?" But, obviously
Adrian.
we were waiting for it. But obviously, rewatching it, this movie is absolutely spectacular for so many, so many, so many reasons that I think we're about to get into. And I think, a movie like Rocky is really special for the canon because it's not only a great movie, as a standalone sort of film and an achievement of cinema, but it is a really important movie in the history of cinema. This movie has a lasting legacy and sort of like changed the industry in a lot of really cool ways. But then also, Dhal, like what you were talking about, this is a movie that for a lot of people means a lot to them in their personal lives, especially based on when they watched it and who they watched it with. So I am really excited to talk about all of these things with you guys. I guess we can start with just sort of the movie itself and what makes the movie so special. So, Duke, I don't know if you want to talk us through, your thoughts on why Rocky is so great as a piece of cinema.
Oh man. It's interesting I'm going to jump in on that point where you were making where it doesn't have that much boxing. I mean, rewatching it before we recorded earlier, I had paused to get some water or something, and I paused right before the match, and there was like 19 minutes left in the movie, and I thought, wow, like yeah, there's like the whole kind of point, this big Apollo Creed versus the Italian Stallion. It's like in the last 19 minutes of the movie, which is now you'd have that match be like, well, you'd have them fight a couple times and all that. So it's I think it's important kind of it's a kind of like it's a time box. It's like this is how we used to make, sports dramas, where it's more character. You focus more on the character than the actual sports. You're actually following this character. And it's really, I mean, you can kind of tell that, Stallone wrote it. This is, he's very familiar with the character of Rocky Balboa, the terminology, kind of that lifestyle that Rocky Balboa is in, which, originally United Artists weren't interested at all in Stallone taking the role because he had no leading man experience. And it's hard to imagine like anybody kind of bringing that energy to Rocky Balboa, kind of like a more established actor. I think part of the reason is because this is one of his most iconic characters after Rambo. He will always be these Rocky and Rambo, just as, Harrison Ford will always kind of bring it with Indiana Jones. Doesn't take a genius to look at the Indiana Jones 5 trailers, and whether you think that movie's going to be terrible or not, you can see that Ford is having a hell of a time playing Indiana Jones again. So there's just these It's the right moment combination of the actor and the role and the pairing where it just kind of blends together and magic. Movie magic is born.
Movie magic is born. Dhal, what do you have for us in terms of Rocky movie magic? Just sort of first off as a movie, the story, all that stuff. What do you have for us?
There's a lot of reasons why I think that it's an amazing movie. I mean, it's just well made. I don't think that's at all in dispute by anybody for the time, especially considering that Stallone wasn't a name. He crushes that role. I mean, I actually think that Stallone has this image of sort of the dolt, like not a particularly intelligent guy, and I think it's because he's so utterly convincing as that character, and that just sort of stuck with him over the years. Not true at all. He's pretty intelligent if you read some of the things that he's written. So there's a lot about the movie that I think just make it a great movie. The way it's made, the way it's directed, the way it's written, the way it's acted, the score, genius. But I think the movie has just a gigantic set of balls. And it does something that I don't think a lot of movies at the time, well, I take that back. Movies coming out of the 60s probably would have done this. Maybe that is kind of indicative of the time. But Rocky doesn't win. He loses at the end.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't win. And I think that's pretty miraculous. I mean, when you think about other movies at the time, I don't know. I mean, imagine if the shark wins in Jaws. Imagine if they don't blow up the Death Star in Star Wars. How is this movie a hit, such a gigantic hit, and the hero doesn't win? I don't know. To me, that's astounding that you can make a that speaks to that many people. He's the underdog. People want to see the underdog win, but yet it's still this incredibly successful movie.
Dhal, I'm happy you brought us here because this is definitely a point of discussion that we should hit on. I feel like Rocky, part of the appeal of Rocky and part of why it blew up and birthed the huge franchise and made Stallone a star the way that it did is because of the context that it exists in sort of cinema and I would say even like American history. I think between like from the 60s through like early 70s, I think the country was kind of grappling with a lot of sort of tough realities of not realize and not thinking that everything was as black and white as it maybe felt in the 40s after the war or the 50s after the war. Things felt a little bit more confused. You weren't sure if you could trust your president and all of that stuff. We don't have to get into the history of all of that. I think most of our listeners are aware of those things happening, and I feel like the movies at the time really reflected that. I was looking at the list of movies that this beat out for the Academy Award and the movies that came out around this time, and one of the movies that this beat was Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver, which I feel like is a very and the other one was All the President's Men, which is literally about Watergate.
Yeah.
It's literally about how everything is so screwed up and nothing is good and everything just sort of feels hopeless in American life. And then Rocky comes along and it's this great underdog story and he doesn't win at the end, but he does achieve his goal. All he wants to do is go 12 rounds with the champ. And he does that. And that is enough of a win for all of us. It reminds all of us about the power of like the human spirit and what we can do and that there is still good in the world. And I feel like that's why Rocky like really stuck the way that it did with people. Duke, do you have anything more for us on the topic of this being like the ultimate underdog movie?
I mean, kind of speaking, I guess you kind of said it already, Rocky never wanted to win. I mean, sure, winning would have been nice, I think, but he just wanted to go the distance, and he did that. And I mean, Creed won, which he needed to win. I think he wouldn't have been too happy if he lost. And then Rocky held his own. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, Rocky did what he wanted, and he earned Creed's respect, which I mean, I think that's what a lot of people just kind of aim for. And they're like, these underdog stories, I almost think it's more realistic this way.
Hmm.
the world's worst soccer team somehow manages. I mean, I think Ted Lasso's doing this right now. I'm not in the. I haven't watched too much of season 3, but if you if it's just a an hour and a half film where somehow this team sucks and a good coach comes in, takes these kids under his wing, and then they miraculously win the championship, it rings a bit hollow in my opinion. Where Rocky, he's putting in the effort. You have that great training montage, and Creed's the one that kind of was just thinking this was going to be a fun match, and then kind of Rocky, he loses, but he also wins. He's done this for himself. He didn't do it for anybody else. He didn't do it for the belt or the championship title. I don't know. It feels a bit more realistic, which I think is something a lot of these films of today are missing, is a bit of realism, a bit of heart.
100%. But it's realistic in a way that the rest of the movies at the time weren't, right? It's like realistic but hopeful.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dhal, I cut you off.
No, not at all. I'm glad you brought up what you brought up earlier, Raph, because even as I was saying that Rocky was probably indicative of the movies of its time, it was occurring to me that, yeah, it would be something to do in New Hollywood to not have the hero win, but it would have been a cynical take. And you're absolutely right. You said the exact word that I think is the correct word: hopeful. He works hard, puts in the effort. He's a nobody. He comes from nothing, and all he wants is a shot. And he gets his shot, and he goes the distance. And it leaves us with hope. And you had great American cities crumbling, falling apart. Look at any of the movies at the time. You have all this urban decay. People are not hopeful. They are out of work. And jobs are going overseas. You have attempts to try and reconcile issues with racism. You have, like you mentioned, Raph, you can't trust your president. It's a very new Hollywood movies were very cynical. They weren't sure whether we were going to be able to hold out much longer as a country, whether we could turn things around. And I think Rocky is saying that we can on a personal level, and maybe it's saying that we could as a country. It's interesting though that Apollo wears the stars and stripes.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but
I don't either, but I think, Dahl, kind of similar to what you're getting at, what did you guys make of the movie being set in Philadelphia at, the bicentennial anniversary of the United States? In Philly, the birthplace of the country, and here's this underdog, sort of similar to, I guess, like our country's origin story. Well, Duke, I guess not yours.
I can't speak for this. That's gonna have to be Dahlgren.
Well, I'm kind of reeling right now because I'm seeing all these different levels of this movie now or at least a couple different levels that I hadn't really considered before. And you mentioned all the President's Men, Watergate, and stuff like that, and there were some cases for sure at that time of kind of the smaller guy taking on, I don't know, corruption, the big government. I don't know. Maybe that's just kind of maybe it's in the background of that movie. The little guy can make a difference. And I wouldn't say that Creed is not necessarily painted as a bad guy. That's probably another plus in this movie's plus column. He's cocky, but I don't think he's a bad guy. And maybe he just needs a wake up check. And maybe that's what Rocky as a little guy does. That's really interesting, actually. That just kind of came out of this conversation. I'd never really thought about that.
I also had never really thought about Creed not really being a bad guy. He's just there, right? He's more of an opportunity for Rocky, and maybe that's why he is dressed and decked out in all the Uncle Sam gear and all of that stuff. He represents the opportunity that is available in America as long as you are willing to put the work in and believe in yourself and do what it takes to take advantage of that opportunity. I don't know. Again, I think we're both sort of in the same boat of just we're coming to new realizations about what what's happening in this movie on a couple of different layers as we're talking it out,
Yeah,
which is
I
the
love
beauty of podcasting.
I love that reading that you just. I love that. Yeah, that's wonderful. By the way, I love Carl Weathers. I still do. I love seeing
So
him
charming.
and Mando. I love seeing him get a comeback, and I think for a while he was kind of played off as a joke, punchline. So it's really good to get to see him kind of come back and be in in front and behind the camera. I loved him in those Rocky movies and really just anything else. Hell, I went to see Action Jackson at the theater. So
Carl Weathers is confirmed awesome. Dhal, I know you touched on this before, but Sly being someone who gets painted as sort of a dope because he was able to play that role so well in this movie. But I feel like, I mean, I think a lot of people do know this, but I also think a lot of people don't know this. Duke, were you surprised to learn that Sly wrote this movie? And what are your thoughts on that? On the fact that this all is kind of his brainchild?
I wasn't surprised because I watched this and then I was doing research for the Canon article at the time, so I came across that he had written it. So I don't know, I don't remember my initial reaction there, but like I touched on earlier, I mean, it's Stallone wrote Rocky with him playing him in mind. I mean, he bet a lot. He put a lot on this film. I'm pretty sure he had to sell his dog because he couldn't afford to pay him. And then when he finally got Rocky greenlit, he bought his dog back, and I think that's the dog that's in the movie. And I think
you gotta tell that story completely. I mean, it's worth telling.
Oh well, I don't. I'm just going off the top of my head. So, Doll, if I just know he had to sell the dog, and then he told United Artists, "Don't even pay me. Like, don't pay me. If you let me be the lead, you don't have to pay me." And then I think he got paid just for being dog. Go take it away if you know the full story.
I can't give you like dollar specifics, but I remember they made him an offer on the film for him not to star. I can't remember who they wanted. They wanted some people, big names at the time. He said, "No, I got a star, no deal." The thing is, Stallone was completely broke at the time. He sold his girlfriend's jewelry. She left him. He was living in a room. He said that he could reach across, sitting on his bed. He could reach across and open the door to leave the apartment. And he was so broke that yes, he had to sell his dog. So he sold his dog, and the studio offered him, came back with counter offers, and he kept turning them down. And these offers would have been a windfall for him at the time because he had nothing. So he stuck to his guns, and finally they came back and said, "Fine, you can star, but you're getting less money." So he goes back to the little bodega or whatever it was where he stood outside this bodega and was offering his dog for sale. So he goes back to the bodega because he didn't know, he had no contact information for the guy that he sold the dog to. And he stood out in front of that bodega for I want to say for days, like 3 or 4 days, until the guy came in, and he offered the guy money, and he said, "No, I like the dog, I'm not selling him." And so they negotiated, and I can't remember what the sum was, but it was a hefty sum. It was like $15,000 or something like that.
I think it was $15,000 because you're saying that. I had just read this on like a different website or somebody had, and I think it was 15,000. Like it was like a couple $100, I think, that he sold the dog for, and then the dog.
Yeah, I think he sold him for $50 or something like that. He offered him a part in the movie, so the guy is in the movie, Butkus the dog is in the movie, and you got to think, man, it's a great story. The guy didn't have anything at the time. The dog was the only thing he had. His girlfriend had left him. That had to have been. Can you just come on? I mean, believing in something that much. I don't know that there's many of us in the world that can say that we believe in something that much, to hold on that tight for that long over such circumstances. And that may make the movie mean a little bit more because you feel like it's got to be a little bit of Stallone in that movie, right? I mean, like that's somewhat autobiographical.
1,000%. Yeah.
I got the numbers now. He sold the dog for $25. He got $25,000 for the Rocky script, and then of that, he spent 15,000 to buy Butt Kiss back.
It's crazy.
That's insane. But he believed in himself, and he did the work. He did the hard work. There's definitely a lot of Stallone in Rocky, and there's a lot of Rocky in Stallone. And again, we've talked about a little bit about what makes the movie itself so great, but I think the real reason that this movie is in the canon is because of all of this other stuff that happened outside and around the movie. The stories that you guys just went through of the fights that Stallone went through to get it made, everything that he did to make sure that this movie got made and to make sure that he was the lead in it. And, this movie in 76 at the 76 Academy Awards, this movie was the Rocky of that group. Like, this movie should not have won Best Picture. It was up against Network and All the President's Men and Taxi Driver, like other movies that are considered to be some of the best movies of all time. And Rocky is the one that came out on top. That's awesome.
I mean, Rocky is also considered one of the greatest movies of all time. Let's not undercut
no.
Rocky. But I know what you're saying, Raph. Like,
I'm not undercutting Rocky. I'm
Rocky
saying at the time there was no
Oscar film. Is what you're kind of, and I think
Rocky was the underdog in that race, the same way that Rocky was in the fight.
That just goes to show you, though, man, you can never underestimate the power of storytelling and the appeal of hope. A happy ending.
Hope is a powerful thing, very powerful thing. Before we get a little bit too more off topic from the movie itself, Dhal, you mentioned this before, and I want to clear out some space for you to go ISO mode on this. But I know you have some words for us about the score and the music and why it's so awesome. That's the one thing that everyone knows. Well, I guess there are two things that everyone knows about Rocky. It's Adrian and it's the music. So Duke and I are going to clear out, and we want you to talk about the music for a little bit.
Well, first of all, go read my editorial on Screen Age Wasteland. Bam. Yeah. Anyway, what is it? Bill Conti, the guy that did the score, genius score. I think did he do Karate Kid as well? I mean, I don't know. I think that the score is almost bigger than the movie in some way. I mean, everyone knows those trumpets. Everyone knows that theme song. And I don't know anyone of any age that doesn't hear that and suddenly feel compelled to just like do something, like run up some steps or
Gonna Fly Now. That was my running. It was on my running playlist. It's just when you hear that, it's just boom.
You hear that song, you hear those opening notes, that bump, 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 bump. You're like, where's some beef, some frozen beef I can go punch. I mean, come on, it's primal. It just, I don't know. It turns on parts of the brain that I think are normally just kind of like quiet and sedentary, and it's a very powerful thing. And I think there's a few examples, movie examples, where the music and the movie go together so well that you cannot separate them. And Rocky is one of the top ones as far as I'm concerned. And there, by the way, there's a great letter in the liner notes of Rocky written by Stallone about Bill Conti. It's not that long, Raph. Do you want me to read it, or do you?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Read it.
So this is Stallone. Sylvester Stallone had this to say about Conti. Sly, let me introduce you to Bill Conti. I think I nodded, then began to scratch my chin as I inspected Mr. Bill Conti. He was young, thin, acutely intense, detached, dark, black eyes dwelling deep in his skull, something serpent-like in his mannerisms. When I wrote the script for Rocky, I wanted passion music. I wanted a symphony of powerful men, of lonely women, of thick-necked losers, of human ships that crash in the night, of love, of courage, of dignity cast in bronze. I only wish the music could come from inside me, but I was born with ears of stone. Bill Conti shook everyone's hand and walked out the door. 3 weeks later, Bill Conti walked in the door with music under his arm. The music began. I was sweating. I am impossible to satisfy, I thought. I was cheering. How did this thin man with an Afghan dog seize the soul of every character and set it to music? Then it dawned on me. Simple. How could I have not known at our first meeting that he was brilliant? Bill Conti is Italian. Yeah.
that is so good.
Oh,
That also
boy.
totally goes back to what you were saying before of like Sly Stallone is an incredibly intelligent man. Like that's a really well written little bit.
Come on, you can like it bleeds on the page, like it just jumps off the page at you. It's just so rich and well written for sure.
And just an incredible story too. You know, the way that Stallone is describing the way that he wants the music is 1,000% what we ended up getting with is it a score or is it an original song? I was confused. Or is it both?
The score doesn't really have song or lyrics, but
I think it's a score. Yeah, I mean, there's several themes throughout the movie that are that are played. Yeah, I think it's a score.
Sorry, that was just a question that I was just curious about that. Either way, it is. I mean, it's got to be up there, top 3 most iconic, pieces of music from a movie. It is maybe it's Star Wars or Jaws that's above this, and that's it. Really?
Star Wars, Rocky, Harry Potter comes to mind.
Oh, Harry Potter's going. Back to the Future.
Yeah. Back to the Future is great, but I don't think it touches Rocky. Sorry, Duke.
I don't know.
I know. That just hurt you.
No, but it's true. I mean, as much as I love the Harry Potter music, I think that someone that's not super familiar with it or super familiar with film could get it confused with something else, even like confuse it with another John Williams score. But Rocky, there's no doubt. I mean, the Rocky score is like, I don't know, it's like Coca-Cola or Michael Jackson or I don't know. It's just it's a thing unto itself, and it's known everywhere.
I mean, and have you guys ever gone to Philly? Have you ever done the Rocky Steps?
No. One day, maybe.
No. I've been to Washington, D.C. I've never been to Philly.
I just feel like that's the thing. You go to Philly, you go to the Rocky Steps. There's a freaking statue of a fictional character at the top of the steps. That is how insanely iconic this movie became. And
that's pretty crazy.
It's amazing to think that this is truly the ultimate underdog story that has become such a major part of our culture worldwide, that a city built a statue of a fictional character and people travel from all over the world to run up those steps that he runs up, and they pump their arms up and down in the air, and they sing that theme music because it is so damn good, and you truly feel like you're on top of the world. It is so amazing that all of those things came together in the way that they came together in this movie. And I am just like sitting here talking to you guys about it. I am so intensely grateful that all of this exists for all of us. Like, I cannot imagine a world where that song and this movie and that character and the lines, where none of that stuff exists.
I think that's the one thing that is missing from Creed. I know this is a bit of a rabbit trail, but I think Creed is a very, very good movie, and it's kind of a remake of Rocky, but it lacks that catchy theme. It just needed that to punch that whole thing up a little bit. I was really disappointed.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's such an insane thing to live up to. You kind of understand that they weren't able to recreate that magic, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but I don't think they didn't even try. They must have. It's like they thought what you just said and said, nah, screw it. We're not even gonna go there.
It's never gonna reach that level of immortality. So, oh well. But
I recommend listening to that. I recommend listening to that album front to back. I've got it. I think it's hard to find on Spotify. I actually have the vinyl that I got somewhere a few years ago, or probably longer than that now. But it's kind of neat to listen to it on vinyl because it's from the era, you know. So it's like you put that on um, when no one else is around and just listen to it front to back, and it's just it's a great piece of music, man. The whole thing, not just the "Gonna Fly Now" or whatever. All the other songs are incredible.
I also forgot how 70s Gonna Fly Now is. Like, some of the
Hmm.
opening notes and chords of that song are very 70s, which
Oh
I
yeah,
totally dig.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Duke, do you have anything else for us more on that training sequence as a whole? I feel like that's sort of the maybe not pivotal, but that's like the key moment in this movie.
No, I think you guys touched a lot already on quite a bit. I just add that, probably the most iconic shot in that film has to be when he gets to the top of the stairs, throws his hands up, and then you got the Philadelphia skyline he's looking over. I think,
That's
Twitter used to have this, or they still does, probably still do this account called, what is it, Perfect Shots or something? And they
a
would just
one
post like
perfect
a
shot.
one perfect
Yeah.
shot, and that would be the one perfect shot from Rocky, I think, where it's just, I don't know, it's just a really great shot. I think kind of like the moment of you've climbed, you've climbed the mountain, and now you're looking at the journey you've made
Is
This has
that
got
the
me
real
wanting to watch it
climax
all
of the
over.
movie?
right there. Oh, I don't know. No, well,
Like, could you make an argument that that's it and like the fight is just like an epilogue?
it is interesting because there's that scene with Penguin, Adam West Penguin, Burgess Meredith, yeah, where he's mad at Rocky, and Rocky goes, "Why are you so mad? Why are you so mad? Why do you hate me? You always got a thing. You've always had a thing for me." And he goes, "Because you're running around being like a collector for a loan shark when you could have been the best damn boxer. You had so much potential." And he kind of just lays into it. And then I guess, he climbs the stairs, and at that moment, he has, reached kind of peak physical condition. He is now, he's completed the training that he should have done a decade ago, and he's ready to show the world what he's worth. So I mean, you could make an argument, but I think you do need to have the boxing.
You definitely need to have the fight, but
I think that whole segment emphasizes another important lesson that the movie probably is trying to teach us, and maybe it's best said. There's a guy, a writer. I think his name is Ryan Holiday. I think that's his name. He writes about stoicism, and he has this quote: "The obstacle is the way." And so, if you argue that the penultimate moment of Rocky is him standing up on the steps with his arms in the air, you could say that what we're meant to understand from that movie is that the obstacle is the way. It's not the end. It's not the fight. And that's been my experience when I've had a goal. It's the pathway there that's more fulfilling than actual reaching the goal. You hit the goal and you're like, okay, now that was cool. Now what? So him reaching the top of those stairs and it being that
mhm.
big of a moment, maybe that's what it's telling us. The obstacle is the way.
I like that. I dig that reading a lot. I would also maybe add there's potential that the biggest fight that Rocky has is his battle with himself during that training to be the best version of himself. And maybe that's what the movie is trying to tell us, that it's not so much about facing the opponent that is Apollo Creed. It's about, facing yourself and battling yourself and challenging yourself to be the best version of you that you can be, whether it be, you know, climbing up those steps or going 12 rounds with the champ or, finding the love of your life in the pet store, whatever it might be. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. The bigger demon is the one that he's battling inside. Absolutely. And I think that before we get to the events of Rocky, I don't know that Rocky ever even expected much more out of himself. You don't get the sense that it's hard to get a sense that Rocky even has dreams. So when they do come out and he does start to reach for him, You know, because I mean, everybody knows somebody like that, and maybe that's you, maybe it's me, someone who's had a dream and they just bury it deep down because it's harder to take it out and shine a light on it than it is to just hide it away. So when we meet Rocky at the beginning of the movie, he seems very much like a man who has just resigned himself to his fate. This is my life.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And then it gets pulled out of him.
Yeah.
Again, kind of going back to that, maybe Apollo Creed just represents some kind of opportunity. And that's why he wears all the Uncle Sam stuff.
Yeah, that's a great reading of that.
True. I'm glad we all came to that reading together, the three of us here. Thank you guys for that. Do either of you have any final words, other topics of conversation that I may have missed for us on Rocky before we get to our recommendations?
I was just going to add, well, not add, but it's interesting watching the relationship between Rocky and Adrian develop at the beginning. It feels very, I don't want to say cringy. It feels natural. Like I feel like it's probably one of the most authentic representations of those, like the early type of courting, where you're kind of interested in a girl or you're not quite interested, but you kind of are. And then kind of like that back and forth. Because at the beginning, you're almost like, you're looking at it from a 2023 lens. You're almost like, is Adrian just like 100% not interested and he just doesn't give up? But then, no, eventually it's like, no, she does like him. You can see that. And then, I don't know, the brother almost is, I'm not a big fan of the brother character. He seems a bit too much. But, and then you see their relationship develop, and that's kind of cool. It feels very natural. It feels very, I feel like, because it's like you almost don't want to watch because it's so like, I'm going to use cringe for lack of a better word, but it feels very like authentic. It feels like doesn't feel like it'd be unrealistic. It feels very, and then she kind of, opens up. I don't know where I'm going with this. I just thought watching it, I kind of thought, oh, this relationship at the beginning. So I was thinking, why did he write it like this? Like write it where Adrian's so like, well, she's shy. So then she comes out of her shell a bit, kind of like a turtle. And Rocky has a couple
You're
of those.
shy and I'm dumb.
I don't know if I'm drawing anything here, but and then I don't know what happens with Adrian and Rocky after.
I totally see where you're coming from with that though, Duke. I mean, like rewatching that movie nowadays with modern sensibilities, it can look like he just badgers her until she.
Well,
and I mean, actually, that happens in a lot of movies. It happens in a lot of actual relationships.
That's true.
I think it's more like naturally awkward the way that.
Yeah,
Duke, I think you were essentially saying, like that's how early dates sort of actually happen, where
before dating apps, and you actually had to talk to
Yeah.
someone in person. You couldn't rely on.
Both parties are kind of trying to like
swiping
feel
right,
each other
yeah.
out, and it's awkward, especially if one party is shy and if the other party is a little dumb.
Well,
it's gonna
I
be.
think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's gonna be kind of awkward. It's not gonna be smooth. It's not very cinematic in the sense that Rocky is this like really suave guy and he can get any woman that he wants, like similar to James Bond or something like that.
Yeah,
he has an awkward early relationship with the girl that he likes from the pet store.
It's a perfect representation of that. But also, I think thinking about this now as we're talking, her brother is 100% an instigator too. Like he's just feeding Rocky. He's like, oh yeah, no, yeah, come over for dinner. She knows you're coming. She wants you there. Shows up like, why are you here?
That guy's a jackass.
And then she's like, I made a turkey. He goes, pulls the turkey out of the oven, throws it out the window. I forgot about that. I was thinking, aren't these people poor? You're throwing away a perfectly, and that looks like a decent sized turkey just on the street. I was like, buddy, come on. And then he was complaining. As soon as it was mentioned on the TV that Rocky was getting paid like $150,000. Oh, you might need a bodyguard or somebody managing you. It's just he's trying to. Right away, it seemed like he wanted some of that cash. So that character.
Yeah, Paulie's kind of shady throughout the whole series. He's paying. I mean, I think that's I don't know. That's just to me another example of how this movie is. It's really well written. It's real. You know, these characters live and breathe. I think nowadays that character would just be like the comic relief.
Oh yeah,
But
100%.
Paulie Reed's like a real character. You know, he's like, what can I get out of this? He's an opportunist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great shout. He's a real dude. He's flawed, and Sly Stallone definitely he understands all of his characters. He understands Rocky the most, but everyone who is sort of in Rocky's orbit is definitely realized in a way that makes sense within the context of their relationships to Rocky. 100%.
It's a great argument for writing what you know, because when you know people like that, you can write those people as characters really well. There's a lot of other writer directors that do that really well. One of the first ones that comes to mind is Jeff Nichols. I think he does that really well. He knows his characters. He's not writing about people that he's never met, doesn't understand. And I think Stallone knows these people. I think he knows these characters. I think he knew someone like every single one of these characters in real life.
And he knows Rocky. He is Rocky.
He is Rocky. Write what you know. That's what they say.
Yeah, we are all Rocky, or at least we can be.
When you hit play on Gonna Fly Now, I mean, you are that underdog. You are Rocky. You're on a mission to
you are gonna run that block. You're gonna run around the block for sure, the whole block.
Oh,
you know what?
That's the MVP of this.
That little mini story. I wasn't gonna work out today because I just had a lot of stuff going on between prepping for this show and doing my day job and other stuff. And then I watched Rocky and I got the inspiration. I saw him go up those steps and I was like, I need to get my ass, in the gym. I need to work out for, 20, 30 minutes at least because I need to be a better version of myself. I need to climb up those steps. I'm going to fly now. And so thank you, Rocky. This might be the most inspirational movie of all time. Can we say that? Is that fair?
I think
I like it. I'll allow it.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I'm glad we're all in agreement. It is truly amazing. I don't think it can be overstated how incredible it is, how this movie really captured the imagination of a country, of a nation, of a society, of a culture at a time where I think, I wasn't alive back then, but I think America like really needed Rocky when we got him, and for that I am thankful.
Dude, I can tell you there were gray sweats in every department store across the nation for years and years and years and years afterwards.
So everyone could train like Rocky.
Yeah.
How many people were drinking raw eggs in the morning?
Dude, oof.
Man. Rocky in that interview where the interviewer asks him, anybody else punch meat before? And he goes, no, I think I invented it. Did Rocky popularize the gray sweatpants, the gray sweatshirt look for running? Or was that around a lot longer?
No, I think that came from that movie.
It's a great look.
It works.
Great piece of wardrobing.
Now he'd be wearing Lululemon.
I mean, I think Michael B. Jordan literally wears Lululemon in Creed 3 during his training montage.
Those are his Lulu Jordans. I'm sure he's got a nice brand deal.
Yeah, he made it by then.
I love all the Rocky movies. I love all the training sequences. I love the Creed movies. I love their training sequences. Nothing's going to touch the training sequence of this original. It's just, it's too good. It's far too good. The most inspirational movie of all time. Declared here for the first time. You heard it here first. Duke, Dhal, do you guys have anything else on Rocky before we get into our recommendations?
Are we talking closing remarks?
Closing remarks for the movie, if you guys have any, if you want to say, some final words on it before we get into that bit.
I think I'm good, actually.
I'm also good, but I have a correction. I just realized that I lied to you guys at the beginning of the podcast. This is not the only boxing movie I've seen, because I do have a boxing movie on my recommendations, and I forgot till I pulled it up.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue into recommendations. And Duke, I think you just volunteered yourself to go first.
All right, so I'm gonna make you guys wait a bit longer, and I'm not gonna make that my first recommendation.
Ooh. Okay.
Instead, we're talking sports dramas. We're talking the 80s. We're talking Sly Stallone. We're talking thumb wrestling. Over the Top. Let's go. I think we've all seen Over the Top, right?
I've actually never seen Over the Top.
Oh, it's
I've
not
heard
that
it's
good,
awesome.
but it's not that good, but I needed a Stallone movie. I didn't want to do a Rocky sequel. I want to do something sports related. Over the Top's fun. It's definitely an 80s film. It would never fly any other time period just because it's cheesy, silly, ridiculous. Stallone plays a truck driver who like arm wrestles for extra cash. I don't know if arm wrestling's a huge thing in the trucking industry or they made this all up, but it's just silly. And then there's the thumb wrestling tournament, and Stallone's got this trick. I don't want to spoil it because I know everybody's going to be wanting to watch this movie when I'm done talking about it. But
I'm actually literally adding it to my watch list right now.
There you go. He's got a trick with his thumb that just, it's the winning trick, and he has to bring his kid along with him for some reason. I forget why, but his kid's kind of a wimp. But he goes to military school. I don't know. But it's fun. It's silly. So yeah, if you want to see Stallone not throw punches, but instead grip another man's hand, Over the Top.
That's a great description. I love that.
I wanted to bring it back to the our earlier discussion about how the Rocky III beach scene was homoerotic. I thought, just tie it back, like all good writing, all good, movies are supposed to do, tie backs, callbacks.
You're a pro. You're a pro at this. That's why
try.
That's why we keep bringing you back. That's why you get paid the big bucks, Duke. Because you're an absolute
Full
pro.
zero.
That's why we love you. Full $0.
Monopoly money, yeah.
Yeah. Dhal, what's your first recommendation?
Let's go with Gladiator, the 1992 film about boxing, starring
not
Cuba
that
Gooding
Gladiator.
No, Cuba Gooding Jr. and what's that other fellow's name? James Marshall. James Marshall was also in A Few Good Men. I think that's really the only other thing I can remember him from. But it's kind of it's a small film. These guys are high school guys, and they start boxing at Brian Dennehy's gym, and he's kind of an a-hole, kind of a crook. I can't remember exactly what the plot is, but they're boxing for him, making him money, and I want to say they're pitted against each other or something, but they're in like a rough neighborhood in, I don't know, Detroit or something. And it's a small movie. It's not a really, I wouldn't say it's a really well-known movie from the 90s. I think it was on like TBS a lot, but it's good. It's I think it's probably 4 stars at least out of 5. So yeah, that's
nice.
my recommendation.
I had not heard of this movie, but that is also being added to my watch list. That sounds cool.
This other guy, James Marshall, Brian Dennehy, probably a couple other actors and stuff you'd recognize in it.
Ooh.
But yeah, I really enjoy that one. I go back and rewatch it every now and then.
Very nice. When you first said Gladiator, I was intrigued to hear how you were going to tie the Russell Crowe Ridley Scott movie to Rocky. But
all right, well, I'm gonna tie that to Russell Crowe in just a little bit, but you go on.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with that one. So for my first recommendation, I am really, really, really excited about this. This was literally when we first started putting together the canon and we're thinking of episode listings, I was already thinking about this recommendation for this movie. So I'm really excited that the day is finally here that I get to tell you guys about it. So for my first recommendation, I am going with another movie that is about an underdog from Philadelphia who has to fight against all odds to achieve an insane amount of greatness that they never could have thought that they would have achieved at the beginning of the movie. It's also inspiring. The music isn't as good, but it's damn good. The cinematography is great. The writing is wonderful. I am, of course, talking about M. Night Shyamalan's The Village.
Okay.
I
Never seen
love
it.
that movie. Oh, man, it's so good.
I think you and I are in a club together, Raph, because I actually also do love that movie. I think it's very underrated.
Not a lot of people like it, but I will cape up for that movie every day of the week. And, you know, the recommendation is a little bit tongue-in-cheek because of the Philadelphia area underdog story. But, you know, I really, really, really love The Village, so I'm happy that I get to recommend it here.
Right on.
Duke, what's your second?
Okay, here we go. Here's my boxing film debut of Jason Bateman. That's right. It's Teen Wolf 2. What is Teen Wolf 2, you ask? I'm glad you asked. Because
I feel like
it
this
the
is not the
sequel.
first time we've talked about Teen Wolf 2.
I don't think we've talked about Teen Wolf 2. I might have brought up Teen Wolf in Back to the Future because Teen Wolf 2 does not have Michael J. Fox. It's one
I
of those
know.
classic 80s films where it's a sequel with almost nobody back from the original.
Maybe it was off air, but I've definitely heard you talk about Jason Bateman in Teen Wolf 2 before.
Wow.
But sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
No, it's okay. Jason Bateman, whose best film role is 2018's Game Night. I will not take questions at this time regarding that, but Teen Wolf 2 is his film debut. He is Michael J. Fox's cousin in the movie, who has also been blessed with the werewolf gene. He goes to university. Styles and Chubby, which I guess is his name, Michael J. Fox's friends from the first film, also are at this university. And he doesn't want to be a boxer, but the coach at the university is the same coach that coached Michael J. Fox's basketball team in high school. He's hoping Jason Bateman's got the werewolf gene. He does. So it's basically Teen Wolf, but with boxing instead of basketball. It's nowhere near as good. They recast Styles, but I thought I needed a boxing movie. When I finally remembered Teen Wolf 2, I just had to recommend that. Watch it with a double feature with Teen Wolf. It's some fun 80s sports comedies. You can't go wrong.
I thought The Village was going to be the most random recommendation today, and you just blew it out of the water.
Fun fact. Michael J. Fox was in Teen Wolf. He also starred in Family Ties. Who else was in Family Ties, you ask? Jason Bateman's sister, Justine Bateman. Look at that triangle, huh? There we go.
I don't even know. I don't know where you're leading us right now.
Nothing. I was just doing a little. Michael J. Fox might not be in Teen Wolf 2, but you can still connect him to Jason Bateman through Justine Bateman. So see, look at that. That's just some 80s fun facts for you guys.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I feel like I'm right back there. I'm growing a mullet as we speak.
Oh, there you go.
I can't believe you've never seen The Village, but you've seen Teen Wolf 2.
Oh, I've seen a lot of
You don't know Duke very well.
I've seen a lot of 80s movies that I should probably have watched after I watched a bunch of more iconic. Like I just watched Karate Kid a couple months ago, and I've seen like.
How many times have you seen Teen Wolf 2?
I've only seen it a couple times. I watched Teen Wolf a lot more. If Teen Wolf 2 had Michael J. Fox, though, I'd watch it a lot more, but it doesn't. Because it was in a DVD 2-pack with Teen Wolf, so that's one of those DVDs where Teen Wolf 2 is on the flip side. Yeah.
Yeah, so you just flipped it over and you watch it. Okay, I get it. Duke, this is why we love you. That is a fantastic recommend. I can't promise you that I will ever watch that movie, but maybe because you mentioned it.
I mean, you got to see
Dhal,
where Jason Bateman started from, right?
I'm not a big Jason Bateman fan, and
Oh
that's why I think that we've
well.
had this discussion before. Dhal, what's your second recommendation?
Well, I'm glad Duke mentioned it because my second recommendation is Karate Kid.
Ooh.
What does that have to do with Russell Crowe?
I don't know, but that may come later. We'll see.
Oh, okay.
Karate Kid is basically like the '80s version of Rocky. Think about it; it's like the more mainstream, updated story. It's a little more. It's a little more rock and roll. It's a little more. Mainstream pop. It's got a more typical ending where he actually does win, but I mean, he goes up against this all-American looking boy. And come on, the main character's even Italian. I mean, it's practically a remake. If you haven't seen Karate Kid, you gotta go see Karate Kid, man. Wax on, wax off.
Embarrassed to admit that I've never seen Karate Kid, at least in any meaningful way. I feel like I have seen it and like parts of it growing up, but I've never sat down with purpose to watch Karate Kid.
I think Karate Kid, like if you could, I don't know, if you could take a pill and have an '80s experience, Karate Kid is like the pill. It's just so '80s.
You know what? Maybe I'll watch it today. Feeling frisky.
Do it.
Let's do it.
You might go work out again. Be careful.
No one's gonna stop me.
Illegal crane kicks might be coming out at the gym.
Exactly. Watch out, everyone. I love it. That's a great recommend. I dig that pick, Dhal. Both of your recommends are making it to my watch list, which is not something that we can say for Dukes.
I think I saw Teen Wolf 2 when I was a kid, so I'm gonna pass on revisiting that one.
But Duke is definitely gonna watch The Village.
I'm not a big M. Night Shyamalan. I'm Shyamalan guy.
You are or are not?
Not too much. I still haven't seen Sixth Sense.
Okay.
But that's more of a once you know the twist, it's kind of like your enthusiasm for watching a movie diminishes.
For sure.
Not with that movie. That movie.
Okay,
that movie is spectacular, even if you know the twist.
I mean, it still got Bruce Willis when he had hair, so that's when he was still trying. So okay, I might give it a try.
It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. So my second recommendation is not M. Night Shyamalan related in any way. My second recommendation is a book by film producer Irwin Winkler. He is a really important person in the history of filmmaking. He produced Rocky. He also produced Raging Bull. He produced all the Rocky sequels. He produced Goodfellas. He's done a lot of work with Scorsese and Sly Stallone. I think he was like pretty important in bringing United Artists back to sort of prominence in like the 70s with Rocky. So if you want a book about working in the film industry from the producer side, he's a guy who he himself doesn't really have the tools to make a good movie. He's not a good director, he's not an actor, but he's someone who understands all of those things, and I feel like we need more producers like this, people who respect the art that creatives make and don't just see them as line items on a spreadsheet. Check out A Life in Movies by Irwin Winkler. It's a really fun, really quick read about his life in the film industry.
Nice.
He's the only producer with 3 movies on the AFI Top 100 list. I would assume he's also the only producer with, or maybe one of few producers who have 3 or more movies in the canon. We've got Rocky, we've got Raging Bull, and we've got Goodfellas. So, good dude. Well, maybe not good dude, but good book. Good read.
Good producer. Good producer.
Good producer, good read. All right, before I talk myself into any more of a hole, Duke, what's your third?
Raph, you're going to love me. It's not a movie. It's not a recipe, but it's not a movie. My final recommendation is to go to your local boxing gym.
Nice.
Go to your boxing club. Go to the academy. There's these 30-minute fit hit type deals where you go and kind of do a punching bag workout, I believe, or a boxing type workout.
Type
Yeah,
O.
yeah, do a Google, see what's in your area, and why not? I'm sure they, you know, don't go to the ones where they're all like hardcore boxers. I think they probably don't want to teach a newbie, but I think a big city, even small city, should have places that are welcoming to new players, new boxers, people who want to get into it, or yeah, throw gonna fly on and see what you're made of.
That's awesome. That's a great recommendation, Duke.
Hey, I got to vouch for Duke's recommendation. Boxers are legit. They, besides being a good workout, they can handle themselves.
There we go. Hey, and I this wasn't I didn't pick this as a recommendation just because I couldn't think of a third one. No. This was legit. This was from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to ask you guys if either of you have taken boxing classes.
No, but I don't know if I want to. I mean, I would take a boxing class. Mostly,
You
I just
just
kind of want
recommended
to.
it.
I just, yeah. What a hypocrite I am. I would like to, throw a couple punches on a punching bag or something like that. I would be game, but I haven't taken any classes. No.
No, nor have I.
Looks fun though when you see it in films or in TV
Same
shows.
here. I also haven't, but now we have to because Duke told us to.
That can be the Saw meetup. Whenever we
Yeah,
all do a big old meetup, it'll be at a boxing club and we'll take out everything we hate about each other in the ring. All our pent up grievances.
Yeah, I can't believe you said that about whatever movie.
Yeah.
Boom. Dhal, what's your final? Yeah, we're up to the third. What's your final recommend?
I promised that I was going to tie it to Russell Crowe, but I'm pulling a late game play change here. I'm going to recommend The Color of Money.
Ooh, nice.
I think it's similar enough in terms of plot, but also tone. Came out about 10 years after Rocky, but it kind of hits that mean streets, urban decay, inner city, kind of hanging around low lives, not shady types, not sure what you're getting into sweet spot. It's Scorsese, and I don't know if it's one of his underrated films. I just don't hear people talking about it that much. But it's such a good movie. It's such a good movie, and if you're used to modern movies, you might find it to be a little bit slowly paced. But I really don't. I don't think it is. I think it is just a really well told story. I think it keeps you engaged the entire time. Tom Cruise, Paul Newman, and Lee. What's the woman's name? Dang it, she's a fantastic actress. I can't remember her name. Anybody?
Sorry, I can't help. I haven't seen Color of Money. Another one.
That's that actress. Yeah.
Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio or something.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
you got it.
Nice. There he
Mary
is.
Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Yeah. She's fantastic in it, by the way.
Color of Money is so good.
Okay, that's another one. It's on my radar. I got to check out. There are too few hours in the day and too many movies to watch.
But she's in January, man. That's also a good film.
We will get around to it at some point. I like that pick. I like both of your final recommends. My last one is a movie that I think is, I use this phrasing a lot, but I think it's in conversation with Rocky, or I think Rocky is in conversation with it. I'm recommending a movie from, I believe, 54, the great Marlon Brando, the great Elia Kazan. I am recommending On the Waterfront, which is, to me, in a way, I think the character that Brando is playing is sort of a version of Rocky that never got that chance, right? Or Rocky is a version of Marlon Brando's character who does get the opportunity of a lifetime and he takes advantage of it. So yeah, I think those movies are super similar, blue collar sort of guy, down in his luck, boxer, all he knows how to do is fight, and Rocky gets the opportunity, and On the Waterfront, he does not get the opportunity, but that is one of the better, that's one of the better movies ever made. So it's a classic. I would highly recommend checking it out if you have not seen it. Fun fact, Elia Kazan and I went to the same high school, many years apart, but still went to the same high school.
Where'd you go to high school?
New Rochelle High School in New Rochelle, New York.
Oh,
Yeah. Just outside of the city. He's probably our most famous graduate of that school. And he directed some pretty good movies, including On the Waterfront. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, if you guys dig it, but that's my final.
I've heard of it,
I've
but
never seen it, so I'm gonna add it.
It's great. It's great.
Oh, Streetcar Named Desire.
Yeah. Did a lot of work with Brando and made one of like the two oh my god, why am I blanking on his name? One of the two James James Dean movies. Yeah. It's like Rebel Without a Cause and East of Eden, I think is the other one.
You got East of Eden. I don't see Rebel
Without a Cause wasn't him. So those are the two Dean movies, and Kazan directed one of them. But On the Waterfront is really, really great, and I would totally recommend checking it out. If you guys get around to it, I would be interested to hear your thoughts in terms of how it connects to Rocky. Listeners, we would also be interested in how you think all of our recommendations connect to Rocky. We're also interested to hear your thoughts in general about Rocky. So you know where to reach us. You can reach us on the website, screenagewasteland.com. There's a post up for this episode. Drop a comment. Tell us your thoughts on Rocky. Tell us your thoughts on the episode. Tell us your thoughts on our thoughts. Duke, Dhal, before we say our final goodbyes, let's run through our recommendations one more time. Same order. Duke, kick us off.
My first recommendation was another Sly Stallone film, Over the Top. Then I had Teen Wolf 2, arguably the second greatest boxing film after Rocky. And then my last recommendation was to go out and check out what your city or town has for local boxing rings or classes.
All right, mine were Gladiator, not the Russell Crowe Gladiator. Gladiator with Cuba Gooding Jr. and that other guy with the spiky hair from A Few Good Men, and Brian Dennehy. Boxing movie, nice little film from the 90s. Karate Kid, the original, and The Color of Money.
Amazing. My three, we've got The Village, Philadelphia Underdog Stories. We've got A Life in Movies, a memoir by Irwin Winkler, the producer of Rocky. And last but not least, we've got On the Waterfront, great movie starring Marlon Brando from the 50s. Hey,
right.
We did it.
That was rad.
That was awesome. The triple Ds, Duke, Dhal, and Daff.
Hey,
That's
rad.
awesome.
Rad. There's a movie that you can tie into Rocky. It's got Talia Shire in it, and it's basically a remake of Karate Kid.
Where was this about 10 minutes ago?
Are you trying to sneak in more recommendations?
I'm just trying to help you guys out. I'm just trying to, if Duke hasn't seen this movie.
I own it, and I haven't watched it, Dhal, and we talked about it 2 years ago.
I think it was filmed in Canada, so you need to get on that.
Oh, no, not. Oh.
He needs to
I gotta
watch
say,
it.
between me and Dhal, we listed off about 4 or 5 great 80s sports films. Color of Money,
Wow.
Karate Kid, Over the Top, Teen Wolf 2, rad now. I mean, there's a binge.
Dude,
the 80s were great. Even though Rocky was the 70s, but the franchise lives on in the 80s. Yeah, gentlemen, I think we just about covered it. Anything to note? Anything to plug for the website or anything else that y'all have going on?
Hey, I'd just like to say that if you're out there listening to this, you probably don't need to hear this, but just in case you do, see movies that challenge you. See movies that are not, that don't follow the J.J. Abrams school of filmmaking where you need a constant carrot in front of you to keep you engaged. Watch movies like Rocky that try to get at the heart of what it means to be a human being on this planet. We need more movies like that. We need people to care about stuff like that. It's got to be more than just whiz bang special effects and bullshit like that. So see these movies.
Thank you, Dhal. Duke, you got anything to top that?
Like Raph said, you can see the Canon article that I wrote on Rocky on Screen Wasteland. You can also see Dahlgren's, not see. Well, you can see with your eyes and then read it with your eyes. Dahlgren's soundtrack review for Rocky. That's also on Screen Wasteland. And if you want to check out some top 100 lists from the 70s and 80s, you might come across a few Rocky characters, maybe. So yeah, go exploring.
We love it. Thank you, dudes, again. It's been an absolute pleasure. We will see you on the show sometime soon. Take
Thanks
care,
a lot,
boys.
guys. Really appreciate it.
Hey, this has been fun as always, Raph. See you next time.